Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our 10th Coffee and Quality Learning Cohort graduation. I cannot believe it's 10. I do not know where the time has gone. This is by far one of my favorite moments of the year. I'm always excited to see the data visuals and hear the data stories from our latest cohort. And I always learn something from each one of you. So thank you for putting these presentations together. As a little background into how United Way supports our nonprofit partners with quality, many years ago, United Way began offering continuous quality improvement modules where agency staff could learn the fundamentals of CQI, whether it was the CQI basics, the difference between an output and an outcome, or how to create a logic model. Over the past 7 years, we've worked to enhance our capacity building efforts centered around data, evaluation, and CQI. In 2019, we created an applied CQI called Coffee and Quality, which was designed as a professional learning community for nonprofit staff that are tasked with implementing and overseeing CQI efforts in their program and/or agency. Through an expansion effort made possible by Houston Endowment, Coffee and Quality expanded to focus on capacity building for both individuals and organizations. And now we have 7 offerings under the Coffee and Quality umbrella, including the Data Practice Survey, introductory videos, the original Coffee and Quality quarterly virtual sessions, the Fellows Program, case studies, leaders learning circles, as well as what brought you all here today, the Coffee and Quality Learning Cohort. The learning cohort was designed as a community of practice to improve professional competency by engaging in shared inquiry and learning around storytelling with data through data visualization. Each cycle, we continue to see the number of interested applicants increase with an overwhelming response for a 10th cohort opportunity with close to 50 applications for a small cohort. We're excited to share more about what they've been working on over the past 3 months. I'm so excited for the presentations. I can't wait to see what you all put together. And now I'm going to turn it over back to Jessica.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for sharing and joining with us today. So, as Margaret mentioned, Coffee and Quality has provided us the opportunity to examine a wide variety of topics centered around data, evaluation, and continuous quality improvement. While the learning cohort has created the opportunity to do a deep dive into one topic. There are lots of different ways to talk about storytelling with data. It definitely has a buzzword feel to it because there is an art and a science to it. Key to storytelling with data is that we need to spend as much energy into communicating as we do collecting data. The learning cohort came together over 8 sessions to dive deep into the key concepts, research, and best practices for storytelling with data through data visualization. So storytelling with data has 3 elements. You combine data, visual, and narrative, where data is the foundation, where you move from exploring data into explaining data to your audience about why a particular insight is important. Adding visuals of the data enlightens the audience to insights they wouldn't necessarily see without charts or graphs. And then by coupling all of that with narrative to the data, you help explain to your audience what's happening and why a particular insight is important. When you combine all 3, data, visual, and narrative, you have a data story that can influence and drive change. So the learning cohort worked through these different elements of storytelling with data by examining real life examples, having open discussion, and small group activities. As a culmination to their cohort experience, they're tasked with the Coffee and Quality Learning Cohort Challenge presentation, which is why you're all here today. And so the participants were challenged to create a data story and visualization using the 2023 ALICE data. They combine the ALICE data with other data sources, other trusted data sources from their agency, their program, community, population. The stories are theirs to form and to make. So as a background, ALICE is an acronym. It stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained Employed. It really provides a more accurate picture of the economic reality across our community, especially regarding the number of households that are severely economically challenged, which impacts both the individual and the community. And so the central theme for the challenge is from surviving to thriving. While this is a challenge, everyone is a winner. The challenge is really a challenge against themselves to apply the concepts that they learned through the learning cohort. They all came into the learning cohort with different levels of experience and data literacy, with different professional backgrounds, coming from so many amazing organizations. And that's what you're seeing here today is them coming together to learn and grow and apply what they've done. And so each participant will have 5 minutes to share their presentation, and they each got 4 slides too. And so that those parameters are really the challenge as well. And so to hold true, I will have a timer, and at about a minute left, I will comment in the chat for them to tell them, hey, you have a minute left, so they know it's time to wrap it up. But just a note that you'll see that happening. This is a hold your applause until the end experience. And so as you see folks kind of going through, please hold your applause. However, we do want you to share in the Google slide any comments or reactions that you have, any instant thoughts or reflections. We would love to have you comment there. Each participant has a slide. And so as they go through, you can find their name and add something into the box of wow, maybe share some praise or positive affirmations for what you've seen and what you're hearing. Or maybe there's something really interesting that's piquing your interest for you. And so feel free to add a comment there in the box. And then we talk a lot about the strength of communication in the learning cohort. And as we start to understand data, we start to bring it into action. And with that often comes questions. And so if you have any questions, you can feel free to use the box for questions, knowing that the participant may or may not be able to like come back in and type in an answer. So it's more of a free-flowing box to hold for questions. So we're putting that again in the chat for you, and happy to have that there as a way for the participants to reflect too, because they put a lot of work and effort into their challenge presentations. And so very excited to move us into that now. Okay, so with that, we are going to get started, and we have our first participant who's going to lead us off. And so I will hand it over to Aline.
All right. Hello?
Hello, you
Hear me?
sound
Okay.
great.
Okay. So if you're wondering why I'm in a lazy boy in my living room, I have no power at home, so bear with me. But I'm excited to be kicking us off. Um, do we have the slides up already? Don't see them. 1 second.
Yes, we're all
There we
set.
go. Okay. Awesome. So hello, everybody. I'm Aline Pena. I'm the Program Design and Implementation Manager at Connective, and I'm excited to be the first one. So the theme of our cohort is From Surviving to Thriving, and I kept coming back to one question. What pulls Alice families back from thriving even when things are going right? And one answer that consistently shows up in our data is disasters. Not just the big obvious ones, but the financial aftershock that follows. A storm that lasts a day can set Alice's family back for years. So I linked 2 data sets, obviously the United Way Alice data on financial vulnerability by zip code and Connective's disaster impact survey to understand what that aftershock actually looks like and where it hits hardest. So who are we talking about? Jessica already went over Alice, asset limited, income constrained, employed, households who are working hard but can barely afford the basic cost of living, housing, childcare, food, transportation, and healthcare. And my analysis really covers 4 counties, Fort Bend, Montgomery, and Waller. In these 4 counties, 41.4% of families are in Alice or in poverty, with 39% of them being Alice households. So this was part of my data set. And then the second part that I used was the Connective Disaster Needs Assessment Survey. So after most disasters, Connective deploys the survey through our partner networks of government agencies, nonprofits, and philanthropic organizations to reach households directly. We ask about their current needs and disaster impact, and some of the information we collect and what I included in this analysis are insurance status, preparedness, home damage, food and water access, work disruptions, debt, and how people are funding their own recovery. For this particular analysis, I used 18,000 respondents across 4 events. So that's Winter Storm Uri, the 2023 tornadoes, the May 2024 floods, and Hurricane Beryl. And I matched those responses to the ALICE data across 167 zip codes, linking who is financially vulnerable with how disasters actually hit them. So the question isn't just who got hit, it's who's already falling before the storm even started. And we can go to the next slide. So the answer is pretty clear. ALICE families face the highest barriers at every stage, before, during, and after. For these households, the disaster begins before the storm even hits, because preparedness is a luxury they can't afford. On the left, you can see uninsurance rates, and they climb highly with ALICE concentration. In the highest ALICE zip codes, over 60% of households had no insurance going into these storms. On the right, the chart answers a simple question: how much worse is it in ALICE neighborhoods versus everywhere else? Each bar shows the gap in percentage points between high ALICE zip codes and non-ALICE zip codes on the same disaster metric. So the longer the bar, the bigger the disparity. Take the top bar, insurance. In ALICE zip codes, 62% of survey respondents had no insurance. In non-ALICE zip codes, that number was 33%. That's a 29.5 percentage point gap. Same storm, same region, completely different starting line. And the pattern repeats on every metric you see below. The one that really struck, and it doesn't seem like such a big jump, is the 6.6 points under pre-existing home damage. But the underlying number is that 38% of ALICE households went into Hurricane Beryl with pre-existing damage to their homes. So that may be deferred maintenance, wear and tear, but in some cases, it's often previous storms, previous hurricanes. And families will sometimes just close the door on a room that has been destroyed or impacted by a storm and just move on with it because they can't afford or to think about repairing it. We can move on to the next slide. Slide 4. Okay. So why am I telling you this? You're probably thinking, I don't work in disasters. What does this mean? So the data isn't just for disaster responders, but for anyone working to move ALICE families towards stability. So I built a composite impact score from 5 financial indicators: food insecurity, lack of clean water, taking on debt, borrowing from family, and unpaid time off. Then identified the top 25 highest impact ALICE zip codes. So the places on this map where storms do the most financial damage. And here's what I think is the real takeaway, is that a lot of the work that protects families from disaster isn't disaster work at all. So if you think about it, if a family has stable housing, home repair doesn't become a crisis. If they have savings, even a small buffer, they don't go into debt after a week without power. And if they can't access information in their own language, they can act on warnings and find resources. So the 4 recommendations I have aren't just about storms. So rapid financial relief in high impact zip codes, yes, post-disaster, but also the kind of emergency assistance and cash transfer programs many of us are already running. Closing the preparedness gap, which really means helping households stabilize before the next event. Financial coaching, benefits enrollment, workforce supports, that's all disaster preparedness too. Bilingual navigation and services and resources. The 21.6% of ALICE zone respondents prefer Spanish. Accessibility isn't a disaster-specific need, it's an everyday one, but it becomes life or death during a storm. And proactive home repair programs. So 38% of ALICE families entered Beryl with existing damage, and breaking that cycle really means investing in housing stability year-round, not just in recovery mode. So whatever you're working on, food access, housing, workforce, financial empowerment, you're already building disaster resilience. And this data just shows you where it matters. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm glad everything held while your electricity was out. Good job. Win for the people. All right, next we have Anna.
What can $108 really change? For one Houston family, it meant the difference between staying stuck in survival and moving somewhere safe. I'm Anna Johnston, and I'm with Kids Meals, and we deliver free, healthy lunches to preschool-age children facing food insecurity. At its core, our work really does 2 main things. 1, we nourish children during a critical stage of brain development. And 2, we create a little bit of wiggle room, breathing room in families' budgets. Because when families even have just a little bit of wiggle room, Houston's future can change. Next slide, please. In Harris County, 44% of households struggle to afford its basic needs. They're living below the poverty line, or as Alice. That means nearly half of families are struggling to afford the basic needs like housing, transportation, and food. Among them are more than 100,000 preschool-aged children. These are children in one of the most important stages of brain development, yet many are living each day not knowing what, when, or if they'll eat. And these children are Houston's future. They will become our nurses, our local business owners, home builders, and neighbors. And one of these families are the Osorios. The Osorios are a family of 7. So that includes mom, dad, 5 children, and that includes 3 preschoolers. Next slide, please. As many of you may know firsthand, that having and caring for children can be really expensive. And Mr. Osorio works in construction, but like many Alice families, his income just couldn't really keep up with the rising costs of their family as more kids came, as costs increased. And in Harris County, food alone can cost about $230 per preschooler each month. And that's about 14% of a preschooler's survival costs. And many families, like the Osorios, actually opt not to pay for that childcare portion. And instead, they have a single income home while one caregiver stays at home with the littles. So that makes food really more like 25% of a preschooler's survival cost in that situation. So for the Osorios, that meant nearly $700 a month just to feed their 3 youngest children. So in their budget, every single dollar was spoken for. And then when a 14-year-old boy was killed outside of their apartment complex, the Osorios wanted to move somewhere safer, but they couldn't afford to. And this is what barely surviving looks like. Not just the financial stress, but those impossible choices, one after another. Next slide, please. But this is where Kids Meals comes in. We deliver a healthy meal for each weekday for each preschooler, plus 3 weekly grocery bags for the entire family. And when older siblings are home from school for the summer, for holidays, we deliver weekday lunches for them too. So for the Osorios, with those 3 preschoolers, that added up to over $189 in monthly savings and more than $300 in monthly savings when the older siblings were home from school. Look, that's not a windfall savings, but it is just enough wiggle room. And for the Osorios, that wiggle room changed everything. Mr. Osorio used those savings to invest in tools for his work. That led to higher paying jobs. He gained new skills, and he eventually actually launched his own business. Today, he employs 5 people, and his family now lives in a safe home where their kids can play outside and never have to wonder what, when, or if they'll eat. So what does Houston's future cost? Well, for a Kids Meals donor to make this impact possible for a family with 3 preschoolers, it costs just $108 a month. And that's not just for food. That $108 means stability and an opportunity to thrive. And when enough families have that opportunity, it changes Houston's future. Thank y'all.
Wow, thank you so much, Anna. Okay, we have our next one. We have coming from Kirby.
Good morning. My name is Kirby Atwell, and I work in the development department at the Coalition for the Homeless. Today, I want to tell a short data story about how close many households in Harris County are to crisis and how systems can move people towards stability. I'll connect 3 things: household financial instability, what we see in homelessness data, and how public and private investment shapes what's possible. The through line here is systems, how upstream risk shows up downstream, and how coordinated investment can change outcomes. Next slide. This slide shows ALICE data, which represents households with income above the federal poverty level, but not enough to afford basic expenses in the county where they live. What we see here is Harris County data across 3 years. Each bar represents a year broken into 3 parts. households below the federal poverty level, ALICE households, and households above the ALICE threshold. What stands out is that ALICE households make up the largest share of households below the threshold every year. Risk in Harris County isn't only poverty. It's also working households living with very thin margins. For many of these households, one medical bill, one car repair, or one unexpected expense is enough to turn financial instability into a personal crisis. Even as conditions shift year to year, this composition stays remarkably consistent, and that level of instability doesn't disappear on its own. ALICE data shows us who is at risk. Next slide. This is what risk looks like when it becomes crisis, when a person or household falls out of stability. The point in time count conducted by the Coalition for the Homeless and the region's homeless response system shows us a snapshot of people experiencing homelessness in Harris County on one night each year. Behind every number in the pit count is a person experiencing one of the most destabilizing moments they or their household can face. This chart shows two important dynamics over time: the number of unsheltered individuals and the number of individuals served through permanent supportive housing. Between 2021 and 2023, unsheltered homelessness declined while the number of people served in permanent supportive housing increased substantially. And in 2021, the number of unsheltered individuals actually outnumbered the people placed in permanent supportive housing. That matters because permanent supportive housing represents more than shelter. It represents a connection to long-term housing services and stability. More people connected to permanent supportive housing means fewer people living in places not meant for human habitation, and more people on a clear path towards stability rather than remaining in crisis. This doesn't happen by accident. It reflects outreach, coordination, system capacity, and sustained investment. This data shows us who has fallen into crisis, but it also shows us how the system is working to move people out of this crisis. Next slide. This final slide shows what makes progress possible. Progress like this is powered by investment. Public funding allows the system to scale, supporting housing, services, and coordinated response around Harris County. Importantly, the growth in public investment over the period closely aligns with the growth in the number of people served through permanent supportive housing and the decrease in people experiencing homelessness. Private philanthropy adds flexibility, helping fill gaps, pilot solutions, and respond to changing needs more quickly. Neither works as well alone. When public and private investment work together, we see results. Fewer people experiencing unsheltered homelessness, more people connected to permanent supportive housing, and stronger pathways towards long-term stability. This is where prevention, response, and recovery come together. ALICE data shows us who is at risk. The homelessness data shows us who has fallen, and our funding data shows us how, when we invest together, we can change the trajectory for households in Harris County before crisis becomes homelessness. To move more people from surviving to thriving, Harris County needs continued investment from both public and private sectors working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kirby. All right, next we have Suzanne.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Mubarak, and I'm with Girls Inc. of Greater Houston. I am our Director of Program Operations and Compliance. Girls Inc. has 75 affiliates across the US and Canada, and our mission is to inspire all girls to be strong, smart, and bold. We have a vision of powerful girls and an equitable society. I'm not going to share our entire value statement, but I do want to highlight two of them. Two of our values include a drive for results anchored in integrity and accountability, and collaborating for impact. So on my next slide, I asked the question, why focus on girls? There is still a wage gap of 84 cents on the dollar between men and women. So even though people think that girls no longer need non-traditional experiences because they've heard the message that girls can do and be whatever they want, there is still a gap in their earnings and in the type of work that women hold. Women and girls who are strong, smart, and bold are often criticized or considered offensive because they go against our societal norms. In this chart, I decided to look at leadership, although there are gaps in many other industries. If you look at women in US Congress, about 28% of them are women. And in Fortune 500 companies, so outside of government, but in a business field, 27% are executives. So that's very similar across the two different industries, but still at less than a 50% representation. I also noticed about 42% of Congress women are women of color. I thought that that was disproportionate, but that's because I live in Houston, which is very diverse. And so when I actually looked that up on a national level, that's actually pretty proportionate to how people identify their race in the US Census. However, in the business sector and executives at Fortune 500 companies, women of color only represent 22% of all women executives. So, who does Girls Inc. serve? On our next slide, you can see that while we serve over 3,000 girls in 54 sites across Harris County, our main focus, or where most of our schools are in the greater Fifth Ward area. We are in about 7 schools in that area. We have 46% of households in that area are Alice households, and 32% live below the poverty line. Another big area for us, largely during the school year, but largely during our summer and spring break camps, is the Sharpstown Gulfton area, where 40% are Alice households and 23% live below the poverty line. And because these are the families that we serve, we always make sure that our programs are offered at no cost to our families. So, what kind of programs do we have? We work on confidence, self-esteem, STEM, leadership, college and career readiness, and a lot of other topics to help girls be successful and confident in their lives. On our next slide, I went ahead and analyzed specifically because we looked at leadership in the first slide. I went and looked at post-secondary readiness, which is part of our leadership programming, our BOLD programming. And also because high quality education, including preparation for college, is a strong predictor of upward economic mobility. So going with that theme of surviving to thriving. We surveyed our girls after a year of Girls Inc. programming, specifically in the post-secondary readiness programming, about if they were aware of what costs they might expect for education and training after high school, if they know what kind of education and training they will need, and then also, for those that were interested in going to college, if they know how to apply for college and if they know about different financial aid options for college. What we saw when we analyzed this data is that while we are doing a great job introducing them to lots of different kinds of careers and occupations, and many of our girls are getting a good sense of how to get there in the sense of what training they will need, they were not really getting it in the sense of understanding how to get there and how to pay for it. Those were areas that we saw that we could work on. And so that affected where we went this next the year after that, and we made sure to talk about many financial aid options. We collaborated with another community partner, College Community Career. They came in and talked to our girls and their families about financial aid and options for college. And then this year at our high school camp, we are going to put more focus on applying for college, learning how to write essays, learning how to do interviews, and things like that to help girls feel more ready to apply for college, more ready to be able to obtain that career, and more ready to move from surviving to thriving. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, we next have Tia.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Tia Hassel. I'm with the Council on Recovery, and I serve as the Program Financials, Contracts, and CQI Manager. Today, I'm going to be presenting on From Surviving to Thriving, Bridging the Gaps in Behavioral Health and Economic Stability, with the focus on addressing economic vulnerability and substance use in Harris County. Next slide. Let's start with the reality. In 2023, nearly 29.2% of working families in Harris County struggled to cover basic expenses. These are families who are employed yet still unable to meet essential needs like housing, food, healthcare, and transportation. At the same time, substance use continues to be a critical issue nationwide. According to national data, 48.5 million individuals were living with a substance use disorder, yet 85.4% did not receive treatment. Even more concerning, 2.9 million youth between the ages of 12 and 17 needed treatment, highlighting a growing crisis among young people. These numbers aren't just separate issues, they are deeply connected. Economic instability often increases stress, limits access to care, and creates barriers to recovery. At the same time, untreated substance use can make it even harder for individuals and families to maintain employment and financial stability. This creates a cycle where families are not just struggling, but stuck in survival mode. Next slide. This is where the Council on Recovery steps in. Our work is centered on helping individuals with families move from simply surviving to truly thriving. We do this by addressing both behavioral health needs and the economic barriers that prevent people from accessing care. First, we focus on expanding treatment access, especially for ALICE households. These families often fall through the cracks, earning too much to qualify for assistance, but not enough to afford treatment. Second, we build strong community partnerships to ensure families are connected to the resources they need. No single organization can solve this issue alone, so collaboration is key. Third, we provide resource coordination, helping individuals navigate complex systems and access services that support both recovery and stability. And finally, we prioritize education and awareness, reducing stigma around substance use and ensuring that more people understand that recovery is possible and support is available. Next slide. We cannot do this alone. To truly move families from surviving to thriving, we need continued support from the community. There are several ways to get involved through donating, volunteering, and advocating for policies and resources that expand access to care. Every contribution helps us close the gap between the need and access and brings us one step closer to a healthier, more stable Harris County. In closing, the challenges we face are significant, but so is the opportunity to make a meaningful impact. By addressing both economic vulnerability and behavioral health together, we can create lasting change for individuals, families, and our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tia. All right, next we have Shamika. I did see her. Now I don't see her. Are you there? I don't see her. Let me double check. You know, Zoom gets the best of us. Something always happens as it is. So we will let me I don't see her, right? Is it just me? No. Okay. I'm going to share real fast to jump through her slides and then we will, when she's able to join back in, we will go back to her. And so let us now move to our next presentation, which comes from Allison. Okay.
All right. Do I have access, Jessica? Okay, amazing. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so my name is Allison Mattingly. I am from the United Way of Greater Houston, and I am here to talk about the transportation gap in Harris County and the small way that United Way of Greater Houston is helping to close that gap. So if you've ever driven in Harris County on our miles and miles of freeway or through the sprawl, you know that we are a car city. And that bears out in the data. 93% of Harris County households have access to at least one vehicle. But the shocking thing is, that means 7% don't have access to a personal vehicle, which is actually above the Texas state average. And what that means for folks is navigating a complicated and inefficient public transportation system or limiting their access to everything that the greater Houston area and Harris County has to offer. But homeowner or vehicle ownership is only one part of the story because owning a vehicle comes with significant costs, and we know our Alice families who own vehicles take on a significant transportation budget burden. When we think about car payments, insurance, oil changes, gas, that alone, just to survive with a personal vehicle, is a significant budget cost. But when we add in the maintenance, flat tires, and all of the things that may come in an emergency, in order to be stable in our transportation budget, that leaves Alice families unable to make ends meet, to decide, do I pay rent this month or do I fix the car? Am I going to miss out on work while the car is in the shop or not? So, in order, we see this bear out within the United Way as well. So, the 211 Texas United Way helpline connects people seeking assistance with that assistance. And so far in 2026, over 8,500 people have contacted 211 to get transportation assistance in Harris County. That makes it the sixth most requested need. So we know that this is a real problem and a real gap in the needs, especially for our Alice families. If if a flat tire happens, what do we do? If we need to get to that job interview, what do we do? They call 211 to help connect them. And one of the ways that they do this, that we find this connection work out is through our Ride United partnership. The Ride United partnership is between the United Way and Lyft. It offers no cost rides for individuals. And since 2018, across the US and Canada, over 500,000 rides have been offered to individuals, making sure that they can get those ends meet. So far in 2026, 5,617 folks have been connected with the Ride United partnership within Harris County. So, what does that mean? That means we're making the medical appointment. That means we are making sure that the kids get to school, that the medication is picked up, that we have access to the job when the car is in the shop so that we're not missing the paycheck and we're not missing the hours. So when we think ahead to this Ride United partnership and how you can help us out, number one is to explore the 211 and Alice dashboards. Learn about the needs within your community. If you don't live in Harris County, what are the needs, the transportation needs in your county? And can you get connected to the Ride United partnership? We also ask that you promote 211. It's easy to remember, and we're all one emergency away from needing assistance. So, sharing that with friends, family, and neighbors to ensure that they know that 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, they can get access to the assistance that they need. And of course, we would love your donations to help us continue to offer these free, no cost rides to help fill the transportation gap in Harris County. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Allison. Okay. I believe Shamika's back. Are you back? Yes. Good. Okay. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, good. Good. Okay. I'm going to jump back. Apologies to the one after Allison to Jamie. We will come back to Jamie here in just a moment. Let me get us back to your slides. I'll share
Thank you.
screen and then you can take it away.
Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chimaka, and I work for the Women's Home as a grant compliance manager. And I'm honored to be here and just thank you guys for, being here today. We'll be talking about paycheck to purpose. And what I want you to think about while presenting is just thinking about a mother, a single mother with two kids. And I'm going to highlight her struggle and, most importantly, what you can do to improve her condition. From the research, it shows that in Texas, there's about 42% of the households are either Alice or below the poverty level. And in Harris County, which would be more of my focus, it's higher. It's about 44%. As you know, being poor has its own problems, but being unable to actually support yourself and your kids
it's a greater problem within it creates greater problems within you. Um, let's call our case study individual, Trista. That's what I'm going to call her. I'm going to call her Trista. She's a loving single mother with two kids. One of her kids is an infant, and the other kid is about, say, 6 years old. Uh, Trista takes her work seriously as a case manager because let's say she's works for an organization that has a mission that she completely aligns with or completely believes in, but yet she's really struggling. So on the slide right now, I've tried to highlight here the cost of surviving in Harris County. And as of 2023, the Alice threshold for a household like Trista um, needs about $6,000 monthly. Yet the median wage in Harris County is $4,000. And so we see a little bit over about 2,000 of a gap here. That's a huge gap for a family like Trista. Now, looking at the graph beside it and thinking about Trista, here's what she needs. She needs housing, she needs childcare, she needs food, and in total, that runs out to almost $5,967 of what she needs to actually just survive, not thrive. Next slide, please. And just for context, in our field, about 30% of healthcare support staff, like psych techs, are in ALICE population. 26% of case managers are also in the ALICE population, and so on and so forth. It's important to know that the gap doesn't just stop at our clients' doors, because I think when we think ALICE, we think our clients. It doesn't stop at our clients' doors, but it follows people into our organizations. It's our staff, it's our team members. And so when we see stress or disengagement, sometimes it's not always a performance issue. Sometimes it's a survival issue. In reality, a lot of nonprofits obviously cannot really afford to raise the wage. However, we already offer and pay for benefits that can bridge a gap, either to help them in their current situations or to get them to where they need to be. The one thing I noticed in my research is that most people have benefits but never use it. And I was shocked by that realization because the research actually shows that 50% of employees do not know what benefits is offered to them, which could be either due to stigma or fear, not having enough time to look through the handouts, or going through, multi-layered steps to access the benefits. A recurring theme I kept seeing in the research was a lack of ease to accessing these benefits. And even though they have the benefits, some of these benefits they have are so time consuming to access that employees sometimes give up just getting it. And so the process has to be made easier. The process needs to be made easier. It can be made easier. And as an example, I use the benefits offered at the Women's Home to exemplify some of the benefits that are being offered but are not being utilized by, population. The financial wellness is something that is being offered, professional development, EAP services, flexible work schedules, amongst other things. However, studies are showing that about 50% of employees do not know that these services are offered. And herein, to me, lies the gap. How are we going to get here, and how are we going to do better with the benefits that we already offer to get people to where they need to start thriving? And this is my suggestion. From research, we have to bridge the gap. Having one-page cheat sheets that benefits direct phone numbers and emails, not just having like a whole binder of 143-page PDFs, is a way to get people to understand the kind of benefits they have. Having QR codes in break rooms, monthly reminders in their emails also is another way to bridge this gap. How can we normalize this process? Transparency is always a big thing. Having leaders lead, maybe a CEO talking about the experience of using the benefits and how it's improved their professional development or improved their life, is a way to have employees actually take on those things. And reframing these benefits so that they're not just safety nets, but they're tools that can be used outside of just work, right? Another way to bridge the gap is by building stability with our employees. Hey, I know that there's some programs like emergency savings match programs, childcare programs that we might not be able to offer, but it's things that are actually out there that could be offered, and we can always look into that. And research does show that, being able to inculcate this into our programs or into our organizations definitely works. So our ultimate mission would be to help individuals thrive and not just survive, and eventually just change our paychecks to become purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, next. I'm gonna go through Allison's real fast again. Apologies. Okay, now here we are. We're back. We're into Jamie.
Good morning. My name is Jamie Milky Kiddos. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm with the Mantra Center. I am going to talk to you today about what I refer to as the hidden crisis, and this is food instability within the LGBTQ plus community. While food insecurity is a well-known issue nationally, what is often overlooked is how deeply it impacts our LGBTQ plus community, particularly here in Houston and Harris County. Next slide. When we look locally, the data is very striking. Harris County is experiencing food insecurity at nearly 3 times the rate as the national rate. This means that a significant portion of our community is struggling to access consistent and nutritious food. This can be due to cost, this can be due to food deserts. There are many contributing factors. And while this affects many populations, it disproportionately impacts those who are already navigating systemic barriers, particularly and especially LGBTQ plus individuals. Next slide. Nationally, LGBTQ plus individuals experience higher rates of food insecurity compared to general populations. Within that, transgender individuals face some of the highest levels of need and more likely to rely on programs like SNAP just to meet basic needs. As demonstrated in this slide, you can see that transgender individuals experience food security at 21% compared to 14% of their cisgender counterparts. These disparities are tied to factors like employment discrimination, housing instability, and lack of access to affirming services. Next slide. At the Mantra Center, we are working to respond directly to this need through our lunch services 5 days a week to our seniors, through food pantries at a couple of our locations, to ensuring during the holidays, we do holiday baskets to ensure that our individuals have holiday meals and holiday food staples, as well as during our social events in which we offer not only services to ensure people are not suffering from social isolation, but during those events, we make sure to serve meals. Our mission is to empower the community, primarily lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals and their families to live healthier and more fulfilling lives. Of the individuals we serve experiencing food insecurity, 3 out of 4 identify as LGBTQ+, and 1 in 4 individuals identify as transgender, non-binary, or third gender. These numbers reflect not just who we serve, but the urgent need. Addressing food insecurity in the LGBTQ+ community requires intention, partnership, and a commitment to equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jamie. Okay, next we are going to hear from Hannah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hannah Uri. I'm the Development and Communications Manager at Target Hunger. I'm thrilled to be speaking with you this morning. So for those who are not familiar, Target Hunger's mission is to alleviate hunger and its root causes in the East and Northeast Houston neighborhoods that we serve. We do that through a variety of programs, including our monthly supplemental pantry program, our drive-through food fairs with fresh produce and pantry products, and our bilingual social service navigation program. Today, I'm going to explore how our food fair and navigation services align with where Alice households live and where there are opportunities for Target Hunger to expand and deepen our impact. Next slide, please. So to start, this chart highlights the top 11 zip codes in Target Hunger Service area. Again, East and Northeast Houston, which we've identified as areas with a very high concentration of need. You can see where the highest number of Alice households are located within those zip codes. So zip codes like 015, 093, and 016 represent some of the highest concentrations of working families who are struggling to make ends meet. Food fairs, and you can see where those are located for us with the stars by each zip code, are especially important for Alice households as they are not restricted by income like our pantry program is, and there are no limitations on how many times a family can attend these services. This is important to keep in mind as we move into the next slide. So this shows how Target Hunger is currently serving those same communities through food fairs and navigation services. This chart, in the same order as the previous chart, shows the unique households served by program in 2025. So we can see in zip codes like 77016 and 77020, where food fairs are also located, there is strong engagement across both services in terms of engagement with unique households. Food fairs are important because they go beyond food access. They often serve as the first point of contact, providing immediate access to food, reducing barriers for families, and establishing a trusting relationship with clients. From there, our navigation services offer an opportunity to connect households to additional resources and longer-term support to help families overcome the root cause of hunger, poverty. And you can see that where we have a food fair located, those services are high. So how do our services align with high Alice zip codes? Next slide, please. This final chart compares each zip code's share of Alice households with its share of households served through our food fairs and navigation. You can see in zip codes like 77016 and 77020, where we have a food fair located, there is strong alignment where service is reaching a strong share of households. In contrast, in zip codes like 77015 and 093, where there is the highest concentration of Alice households, there is a smaller share of Target Hunger's households served. Overall, this analysis shows that the location of Target Hunger's food fairs are critically important to helping families in need. And we're already doing that in zip codes like 77016 and 77020. There are also great opportunities to continue to align our services with where Alice households are most concentrated within our service region. If we were to expand our food fair program, zip codes like 77015, 77093, and 77026, which are still within Target Hunger Service area, would be great opportunities to locate a food fair and continue to reach Alice households where they're at, helping them move from surviving to thriving. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hannah. Okay, we're going forward. We have Shahana next.
Thank you, Jessica. Good morning, everyone, and happy graduation. I am Shauna Ayubi, the Data and System Analyst here with United Way. And today I'm very excited to walk you guys through a brief look at ICJ, or Integrated Client Journey Engagement across high Alice communities, and looking at where need and service access are aligned and where we may have emerging gaps in service provision to watch. And working with Alice household, you all might know that if someone needs support with one need, like rent, it's actually not one thing. It's rent, food, childcare, all connected. And we believe that the solution should be connected to. Therefore, at United Way, our work is centered around integrated client journey approach and connecting those experiencing Alice to past possibilities and opportunities. We fund over 87 funded partners, organizations across Greater Houston so that families can move through multiple services without really needing to start over at every door. And ICJ provides two entry points, as you can see in the picture on the right. One is through our navigation to get that one-on-one support from a navigator, and the other is through our self-service model to really set goals, explore resources, and track progress on their own pace. And then in the next slide, I really wanted to see if the highest need communities actually are engaging with the integrated client journey. On the left the chart, you can see that the Alice and poverty map, and as you can see, the highest concentrations appear in Harris County, mostly in Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, and Northwest Harris counties. And this pretty much aligns generally what we know in these areas. There are higher cost burdens, more working families struggling to make ends meet, and fewer buffers when unexpected expenses come up. And in the middle, you can see our 12 region breakdown across our 4 county service areas. This region model helps us tailor services to the unique needs of each community in those regions. And on the right, you see the ICJ engagement across these regions. It represents how our neighbors have engaged with ICJ either through navigation or self-service model. And overall, over 5,500 of our Houston neighbors were recommended to navigation, and over 700 accessed the self-service model. And what is really important to see here is that those high ALICE region on the left map also show up with higher ICJ engagement on this chart. And this tells us that our network actually is reaching the communities we're trying to serve. And in the next slide, I really wanted to go a step further and see if there are any gaps that we might be missing. So in this matrix, I am comparing the level of need and the level of engagement, and I use the 50% ALICE plus poverty as a general cutoff. And honestly, the biggest takeaway here is that we don't really see major gaps. What I really wanted to see is if there are any regions that fall under high need and low engagement. But there aren't any so far. And we consistently see that high need regions are showing in high engagement as well. But there's one region I really wanted to call out, which is the Waller County on the matrix. Waller is just below 50% need line, around 46% ALICE plus poverty. So it's very close to tipping to the high need territory, but engagement is quite low compared with other regions. And that's very expected to the degree when you think about Waller, it's rural, it's spread out, more driving, less transit. And for me, I think Waller is a region to monitor as we continue expanding that outreach. And moving on to the next slide on our outreach strategy and call to action. To really strengthen that alignment, we launched our Small Wins, Big Moves campaign in October 2025 to build our awareness around ICJ and the 2 entry points. And on the chart on the right, as you can see, how these efforts are transitioning into real engagement. Each of these numbers represent our neighbors really taking that step forward to their journey to financial stability, which is either with a navigator walking alongside them or through self-service tool to move at their own pace. And as a part of my call to action is as a part of our broader strategy 5 work, my call to action is to you, my coffee and quality peers, your trusted voices in your organizations and communities you work with. And we would really love your partnership to share smallwinsbigmoves.org and ICJ information through your newsletters, social media, or learning spaces to keep this momentum going and amplify ICJ and help our neighbors transition to thriving. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Shahana. Wonderful. Okay, we're moving on. So we did have one participant who had a board meeting this morning, and so she was not able to join. However, we do have her story recorded. And so we're going to watch Sarah share her data challenge presentation with us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Mundy, and I am the Director of Programs and Services for Interfaith of the Woodlands, a social service agency that provides basic needs assistance to South Montgomery County. Today, I would like to talk to you about a safety net for ALICE. As most of you know, ALICE represents those that are asset limited, income constrained, but employed families that struggle to balance the expenses of food, childcare, healthcare, transportation, and technology. These families live paycheck to paycheck and often just are above that safety net of public assistance. ALICE workers are often found in retail, the restaurant industry, childcare, and healthcare support, such as personal aides, medical assistants, and technicians. These are the people that we see at our favorite stores, grocery stores, restaurants. They take care of our children and our parents. And while Montgomery County is often thought of as an affluent area, 1 in 5 families experience ALICE. The graph below, provided by United Way, shows the survival budget for a family of 4. As you can see, the ALICE budget of 4 can easily be strained with an unexpected expense, such as a medical bill or car repair, and can force the family to choose between a roof over their head or the food on their table, not only for this month, but potentially putting them behind for months to come. Here at Interfaith, we have the opportunity to support these families during this time of financial crisis. When the families encounter these hardships, we're able to provide rental or mortgage assistance, utility assistance, food, gasoline and clothing vouchers, as well as prescription assistance if needed. With the support, we have found that 97% of our families report stabilization after 30 days, and 96% have remained in the home that they were in when they first received services. This safety net helps the family to stay above water and hopefully create a little breathing room for the next unexpected expense. However, for long-term stabilization and for the families to thrive, we need more action. We need collaboration. Throughout this cohort, I have had the pleasure of learning about so many different organizations and meeting so many representatives from those organizations that support ALICE in ways outside of the scope of the services that we are able to provide. My hope is that we can leverage our services and continue to work together to deepen the support for these families and to create opportunity for success, not only in the short term, but to help these families move from surviving to thriving.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, in your video. Okay, and so that takes us from Sarah. We're now handing it over to Megan.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Royce, and I am the Community Programs and Development Director with the Houston Tool Bank. Thank you all this morning for joining us. I'm going to just jump right in. Did you know that in 2023, Metropolitan Houston was 7th in the country's highest GDPs and accounted for 26% of the state's total GDP? Pretty impressive, but that success isn't experienced equitably. While the poverty rate in our area has decreased in recent years, the number of people struggling to afford the essential needs like housing, food, and healthcare hasn't. Called ALICE, this measure is a more comprehensive gauge of financial stability and is underscored in importance by the fact that multiple billions of dollars in government benefits go unused yearly. In Harris County alone, that amount is almost $1 billion. But there are people like you who care, who work to connect the dots between people and resources, who fill the gaps and move the needle forward. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce you to the Houston Tool Bank. We operate an inventory of more than 300 different items like tables, generators, and even lawn games, all available year-round for any type of tax-exempt organization to use for their work. There are many reasons this program exists, but it's designed to help our members save on operational expenses so that they can reallocate money to where it's needed most and do more for our community. You can see on the right an example from an order in 2024 for a food drive. By using our inventory, we estimate that this member was able to save a little bit more than $4,000 of what it would have cost if purchasing the items outright. It's a little bit more than 95% in retail savings alone. We don't know exactly what that $4,000 went to, but we do know that it helped. Earlier this year, we launched a survey, and when members were asked what they were able to do with the money they saved through our program, 72.5% were able to conduct more community projects, and 37.4% were able to maintain operations despite an overall reduction in funding. Next slide, please. We have no regional restrictions in the state, and our area of program impact extends as far south to Galveston. I think Lindsay White with the United Way of Galveston, so hi this morning to you. As north to Conroe, east to Beaumont, west to Fort Bend. And members based in Houston account for about 70.8% of our total borrower base and 63.8% of our total estimated retail savings. As of March 10th, the IRS has nearly 15,900 active tax-exempt organizations with filing addresses in the city of Houston. Since operations began in 2014, 6.6% were approved for tool bank membership, 4.7% borrowed inventory once, and only 3.3% went on to borrow again. In truth, we can only make assumptions why we don't have more borrowers. We know we can do more, and we want to do more. Next slide, please. So this is where you come in. The people who care, who work to connect the dots between people and resources, who fill the gaps and move the needle forward. This is what I'm asking of you. Donate unused tools or equipment to the Houston Tool Bank so that we can distribute it out to members doing work out in the community. Borrow our inventory. Share about our program with other organizations. Get the word out. Provide us with honest feedback. This holds us accountable and make sure that we're doing the services that we need to make your programs more impactful. And together we can collaborate to empower our neighbors and enact real, sustainable, and tangible change. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you. Okay, let's go to Prem. We have 3 more remaining, and so our next one is from Primity.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for taking time out of your day to see our cohort's presentations. I'm Premini Nagesh, the Services and Compliance Coordinator at DAIA. DAIA is a local nonprofit that has supported survivors of domestic and sexual violence for almost 30 years, and I'd like to tell you a little bit more about them. Next slide, please. 1 in 3 Texans report experiencing domestic violence. For these survivors, our neighbors, abuse is often life-altering. Breaking out of their abuser's mental, physical, or financial control requires an immense amount of time, energy, and resources, even more so if they have children. On the path to healing, survivors must first find immediate safety. This means finding safe shelter and exploring their legal options. Then they're able to build towards steadily meeting basic needs. Securing stable housing, meeting their household needs, finding employment and a steady income. Prioritizing these foundational needs means that other things often have to be left to the side. And as they move towards long-term stability, towards thriving, survivors have to pick up these pieces one by one, but many remain jumbled or forgotten altogether. Next slide, please. One of these pieces is education. When looking at ALICE rates for zip codes across the greater Houston area, and the United States Census Bureau data, we see that areas with higher percentages of populations below the ALICE threshold also have fewer percentages of residents that obtained a high school diploma. These communities also tend to have less access to internet. Intuitively, we can see a connection here. In today's highly interconnected world, even second graders have homework on online portals, and students who don't have access at home may have to go to libraries in their area or stay at school after hours to get necessary schoolwork done. One more barrier for populations that are already stretched thin. Lack of internet access either adds hurdles to attaining education or other skill training, or it can eliminate these opportunities altogether. Next slide, please. Well, knowing this, what can we do? On a grand scale, we can look into expanding utility funding options. Currently, many transitional housing or utility assistance programs that offer rental and utility assistance explicitly exclude internet subscription costs. Funding decision makers within nonprofits and grant-making organizations can expand utility funding to be used towards internet costs or provide alternate funding pools, allowing some of our most vulnerable community members to meet this need. Zooming into local support organizations, this means that technology access has to be paired with comprehensive support. Putting a laptop in someone's hands isn't necessarily the end of the journey. As we see here, one often overlooked piece is internet access, but recipients may also need training to use specific applications like Zoom, Word, or accessing their email. They may also need supportive language services if English isn't their first language or if they have limited proficiency in English. But what can you here in the audience do? Support the support. Donate to organizations like DAIA to support advocates who provide tailored services for survivors around technology and economic empowerment. Comprehensive support requires training to understand how trauma from abuse impacts victims and how various forms of abuse overlap to create complex barriers. Comprehensive support also requires so many man-hours. Advocates meet with survivors, understanding them, their story, and their needs. Strong funding options help organizations both train up and maintain experienced, amazing staff that support the community that we all love and care for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, next we have Prasanna.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Prasanna Kumar. I work here at United Way as Salesforce admin. Today, my project is titled From Surviving to Thriving to Education and Opportunities, Improve Financial Stability in Houston. So the main goal of this project is to understand whether increasing education levels are actually helping families move out of financial struggle. Next slide, please. So to begin with, let's look at how financial struggle is distributed across Greater Houston counties. We can see that Harris County has the highest level of struggle household, around 46%, while counties like Brazoria and Fort Bend are lower, around 31 to 34. Even in the lowest performing counties, nearly one-third of households are still struggling to meet basic needs. This shows that financial struggle varies significantly across counties, even within the same Greater Houston metro area. So this gives us a starting point to understand where families are facing the most difficulty. From the right side chart, let's examine the education trends over time. We see a clear improvement. The percentage of people with bachelor's degree or higher has increased significantly, while lower education levels have declined. So this indicates that Houston is becoming more educated overall. Based on this, we can expect that higher education will lead to better job opportunities and improved financial outcomes. However, this raises an important question. If education is improving, are families actually becoming more financially stable? Next slide, please. But when we compare education with the financial struggle, we see something surprising. From 2010 to 2023, education levels increased from about 28 to 36%, but financial struggle did not decrease. In fact, it slightly increased from about 43 to 45%. So this is the key insight of this project. Even though people are becoming more educated, many are still struggling financially. So this tells us that education alone is not enough to move families from struggling to thriving. So this suggests that there are other factors influencing the financial stability. From the right side chart, one of those key factors is employment. This chart shows unemployment trends over time. We notice clear spike during major economic events, particularly around 2010 during the Great Recession and 2020 during COVID-19. So this spike shows how economic shocks can significantly impact employment opportunities. When unemployment rises, families lose income and financial stability, which directly contributes to increased financial struggles. So this shows that even if people are educated, a lack of stable job opportunities can lead to financial hardship. So this reinforces the idea that job availability and overall economic conditions play a major role just beyond just education. Next slide, please. So now let's look at where families stand. About 55% of households are financially stable, but nearly 45% are still struggling, including 30% who are working but struggling and 15% in severe hardship, nothing but poverty. So this means almost half of families are not truly thriving, even in a growing and increasingly educated city. So this suggests that financial stability is influenced not only by education and employment, but also by factors such as income levels, cost of living, and job stability. So overall, we can conclude all the education levels are rising. Financial stability has not improved at the same pace for many families. So how do we move from surviving to thriving? Based on the data and the findings, we can introduce the WISE framework: wages, ensuring income matches the cost of living; infrastructure, affordable housing and transportation; skills, workforce training aligned with job market trends; employment, stable and well-paying job opportunities. So WISE focuses on the broader system needed to support families, not just education alone. For example, a household may have members with higher education but still experience financial challenges if their income and living expenses are not well aligned. However, with appropriate income levels, access to affordable housing and transportation, relevant skills, and stable employment opportunities, that households can move from financial difficulty to stability, and eventually to thriving. So, in conclusion, education is important, but it is not enough on its own to ensure financial stability. To help households move from surviving to thriving, educations need to be supported by opportunity, stability, and right economic conditions. So, this combined approach can create long-term financial stability. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we have our next presentation from Charlotte.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Charlotte Hirsch, and I am a data analyst at Baker Ripley, which is a Houston-based nonprofit that focuses on stability, community connection, education, and workforce development. And today I will be presenting Mapping the Divide, Income and Voter Turnout in Harris County. Next slide, please. Thank you. So before we dive into the local data, I wanted to take a look at the national landscape. As we all know, voting is a very powerful tool for shaping policy and advocating for our community needs. But unfortunately, voter turnout is far from equal. Nationally, there's a very strong correlation between family income and voter participation. So as you can see in this chart, in 2024, the turnout rate for the highest income bracket was 17% higher than the lowest income bracket. So why is this happening? Well, it's likely due to a mix of different systemic factors. For example, voter ID laws and suppression tactics disproportionately disenfranchise lower income communities. And beyond that, the process of voting itself is very costly. It requires, the luxury of taking time off work, finding reliable transportation, and accessing educational resources. So as a result, the representation is really shaped by those who are able to vote. And when we have this income-based turnout gap, the wealth gap inevitably widens. So by boosting turnout among families below the ALICE threshold, we can help ensure that everyone's needs are really reflected in our government. Next slide, please. So this issue is especially urgent here in Texas, which consistently ranks near the bottom of the country for voter participation. And zooming into Harris County specifically, we can see the national trend mirrored at a local level. So on this scatter plot, every dot represents a Harris County zip code, and the yellow trend line shows a clear correlation. The zip codes with high proportions of families in poverty or ALICE have the lowest turnout rates. And this specific data reflects the 2020 presidential election, which is the most recent cycle with available zip code level data. Next slide, please. All right, so to make this even more tangible, let's take a look at this data on a map of Harris County. So here I've overlaid two different scales. Blue indicates higher rates of wealthier families, above the ALICE threshold, and yellow indicates high voter turnout. So if we look at the intersection of these two scales, the green areas show zip codes with both high income and high turnout, and the gray areas identify zip codes with low turnout and high rates of poverty or ALICE status. So let's take a look at some of these specific clusters. So we have kind of the Eight-Leaf, Gulfton, Midwest, South Main area. We have the Greater Greens Point, North Side, East X Jensen IH area, and then we also have this East Houston area, and I've listed the specific neighborhoods here on the right. And currently, Baker Ripley does have several Get Out the Vote projects that intersect with some of these clusters of zip codes. For example, in November 2025 elections, we sent texts, mailers, and handwritten postcards to voters in Gulfcrest, East Aldine, and the East End. But I propose that we make our efforts even more intentionally focused on these areas experiencing this compounding effect of both low historical turnout and low income. Specifically, I propose that we explore relational organizing, which is a method of mobilization that involves voters contacting friends and family in their own social network. So past research conducted by the Columbia Data Science Institute and the University of Notre Dame has showed that messages delivered by personal contacts may be even more effective than messages from a stranger. And this kind of, friend to friend, neighbor to neighbor communication really helps to build trust, especially when systems have failed people in the past. So my call to action here is simple. Let's empower these highlighted Harris County communities to vote. And by leveraging personal connections to close this voter turnout gap, we can increase representation, which ultimately leads to a more equitable Harris County. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte was our last presentation for the 10th learning cohort. So please let's all join me in giving them all an incredible, like big round of applause. I am like literally blown away by all that they shared today. The compelling stories that highlighted the data, the work that they do, the need that is so ever present, and then these like amazing call to actions. There's so many things I've now added to my to-do list just based on hearing their data stories. And so just please continue to join me in sharing a big round of applause and appreciation for all of their hard work. There's so many past learning cohort participants that are here as well. And so they've been in your shoes. And so just congratulations on such an amazing accomplishment today. And it's not over. They'll continue to join into our learning cohort, the community that we've built with over 100 past participants who meet quarterly to continue to strengthen and grow their data visualization and data storytelling knowledge and skills, to really just highlight the work that they do and bring thoughtful, data-driven actions, recommendations, improvements into our community. And so again, thank you so much to all the participants for all of their amazing hard work. Thank you all for joining us today, for hearing them, for sharing feedback and reflections in the document. Again, just really blown away by all the presentations today. As this is our 10th one, just we're looking forward to our next one, our 11th, if you can believe that, later this year. And so really just, again, thank you and congratulations to all of the graduates from our 10th learning cohort. I am going to put Margaret Ozer on the spot as I do at the end of these to see if there's anything else, any other reflections she would like to share.
I will just say that these were fantastic presentations. I learned a lot, as I always do. I know a lot of work goes into taking a lot of information and culling it down to 5 succinct minutes. So congratulations to each and every one of you. I'm always so impressed and humbled by what I see every single time in these cohorts. And each one of you lived up to what I believe is what this is all about. So thank y'all. Super excited for you. And I'm super excited to see where this takes each of our organizations to the next level. So thank you.
Yeah, it really is incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much, Margaret. Well, thank you all again for joining. We will follow up with our learning cohort participants on all their great goodies that they'll get at the end for graduating today, like certificates, and a few other things. And so thank you all so much. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank
Bye.
you.